Okay, I know what it looks like, but this video is still not made for kids. It's for Transformers fans and artists of all ages. You probably already know my favorite Transformers show is Beast Wars. Not because it's objectively the best, but because I found its cast super endearing. Then I finally watched Transformers Rescue Bots. At first it was just to do research for a future video, but I ended up liking the show way more than I expected. And after finishing the show, I could safely say Transformers Rescue Bots pretty much dethroned Beast Wars as my favorite Transformers show. This is a show for ages 3 to 5, sure, and the stories are really silly, but the characters in them are still written like real people. They don't feel like cartoon characters, they feel like actual individuals who are trying to run an emergency response team in a town where danger literally runs through its veins. And it surprised me that there's not enough love for this show because it's awesome. It's not deep, but that's what makes it so easy to watch. It's simple, but that doesn't stop it from being creative. It uses tropes for a lot of kids shows, but that doesn't stop it from being nuanced. It doesn't really feel cliche. It's not perfect, but I love it. And I'm going to express that love for it by including them in my Transformers AO, by redesigning the rescue bots in a more live-action aesthetic. Starting with...
Yet in spite of the lack of appreciation, he still continued to save lives.
Oh, you mean my sidekick? Hey, don't look at me like that! Where would he be without me?
When redesigning the rescue bots, I tried my best to make them as close to the originals as possible. It's a different approach I had when I was redesigning the Constructicons and the Combaticons. You should go watch those videos if you haven't. But the design philosophy was basically to maintain as much as possible while also merging them with their alt modes I wanted them to have. The reason why I did this was because the character work was mostly going to be the same as they were in the original Rescue Bots, but with added context to fit in better with my story. I wanted to try being as faithful as possible. For example, their transformation schemes. You can tell I tried to make it so that the size of the truck became his fists like the show in this design. Though my big issue with this version is that the Pierce fire truck has a ladder rack, and since it's the back of the vehicle, I wasn't sure how it would really transform with the legs, so I came up with a different silhouette that would make the legs the front of the truck, and the sides the chest, and finally have the arms as the back of the truck. This would make it so the ladder rack folds onto the arm, and the part that the ladder rack is connected to can rotate so a person can climb onto it from ground level while he's still in robot mode. The downside with the newer design is that he doesn't have the accessible interior in the previous design. When I say that the characters are mostly the same with added context, I wanted to keep their personalities, but explain how they got to that point. Instead of changing them, it's actually explaining more of who they are. It's not like with characters who don't get much spotlight in a lot of Transformers media, so they end up being a blank canvas for me and other Transformers fans to paint our ideas on. So here's what I did with Heatwave. In the show, he becomes a triple changer from concentrating to strengthen his spark. Here, triple changers are simply built that way because their body structure allows for more complex engineering. When your kibble is held together by what's essentially spaghetti, your spark needs to be pumping more energon to your T-cog to not just move those parts, but know which parts to move like it's second nature. That's why you can't just upgrade someone to be a triple changer, bar for some exceptions. This also means not many of them were forged because the more complex someone was to build, the more expensive and time-consuming they were to handle. They became a privileged class and ended up being coddled to serve the elite. And Heatwave was having none of that. This is where his character from the show comes to play. His default state is to question the orders given to him but still save as many lives as possible. He wants appreciation but knows deep down that he has to put others above himself. The elite ended up punishing him so he could work as a rescue worker, though this ended up being exactly what he wanted as he could actively save lives instead of standing around as the elite security. Before I could finish, my friend Levity gave some feedback regarding the eye color. She proposed ideas on how the eye color could pop a little more, which made me keep the whole eyes and visor thing from the show. As for his human partner, I didn't really see any reason to change Kade all that much. He was my favorite human character, so you can't really improve perfection. All I did was elaborate on details like a proper gas mask, his hairstyle, and try to make his equipment more quote-unquote realistic. Though it probably isn't a perfect recreation of what the equipment would actually look like. This will pretty much be the philosophy for all the other human designs too. You'd think someone so passionate about law and order wouldn't be fun to be around, but Chase is a different story.
Joyous exclamation.
Chase was a fun character to cycle through. I chose a Ferrari as his alt mode as a nod to the Throttlebots chase and to show that he kind of appreciates older, sleeker models. I tried to make him digitigrade in the first sketch and the windshield his chest, but after doing some more tweaking, I realized the original design's kibble worked just fine. I just rotated the interior so it would fit Chief Burns, and he wouldn't be facing down all the time. You could say it made him hollow, but it's more like wearing a backpack on your front side. The head design is interesting because I try to take reference from The Last Night Barricade and Robots in Disguise 2001 Prowl, all the while still trying to emulate the original head design. The red eyes in particular I added just to show that even Autobots can have red eyes. He looks serious and stern, but he's still Chase. Also, the added decals are where it's at. I try to make it so he's showing off both the fact that he's Rescue Force Sigma 17, which gets elaborated later on in the character bios, but also Griffin Rock Police. My personal favorite is Help When Needed on the shoulders, which is Rescue Bot rule number 1. Another thing is that he has his own holograms of rulebooks that he can just pop up to read out or to show off. It shows that he's an orderly person who keeps lists of things and is willing to share that with others. Chase's love for rules is also still here, but is born out of a naive optimism for Earth's laws due to his distaste for Cybertrons. The issue is, the system here, it's not good either. Chase has to find that Earth's laws don't always benefit everyone, and that the people enforcing it can abuse their power to hurt others. The system has a lot of issues, and it can end up being used as a weapon that inspires fear and silence as opposed to safety and freedom. That being said, Chase and Chief Burns can't just magic all the corruption away, but maybe as part of that system, they can try to break the cycle and hopefully give an example of how to uphold the law with compassion.
Okay, everybody, get comfortable. We ready? 'Cause this is epic.
Just get this over with.
Hit it, Blades.
Blades is the bravest of us, and I'm proud of how far she's come.
I was really happy with Heatwave's final design. Chase was also pretty good, but I am so proud of how Blades came out. The Eurocopter EC-135 had the perfect round cockpit and the tail rotor was just right. The way she transformed is very similar to how Turbomaster transformed, which is why she was pretty quick to design. The worst thing I had to deal with was the legs. I wasn't sure how the rotors would fold into her feet. Eventually, I did come up with a solution, and I thought it was just, you know what, that's good enough. The proportions were the most fun to work with because Heatwave and Chase were pretty chunky, so having a thinner built Blades was a breath of fresh air. You may notice I gender swapped Blades, so basically Blades chose to be referred to as he at one point, but changed her pronouns to she, her later on. She is trans in my continuity, and I know some people might quibble with this, but come on, you still have the original Blades, he's not going anywhere. You don't have to worry about my take on her. I did say this was going to be as faithful as possible, and I still stand by that. I think Blades has a lot of preferences in the show that gave me an idea of where the character could go in my continuity, and I thought that maybe she'd feel better embracing being more feminine. It's not like she's modified anything about herself, she's just normal Blades. The only thing she's changed is her pronouns and her paint job, which also has precedent in the real world. So, the elephant in the room. What happened to G1 Blades? I thought maybe the combat-obsessed G1 Blades was traumatized into becoming the Rescue Bots Blades, but then I feel like that changes the character's story a lot, which I'm not sure was the right move for her character. But then I thought for a bit. I think that Rescue Bots Blades is a fantastic character because he taught people that being brave doesn't always being like the serious Heatwave or the macho Kade. Both of these characters don't hesitate to put their lives on the line, but Blades is scared of a lot of things. Blades constantly faces these dangers daily, yet still pushes through for his family. It's great to teach kids that you don't have to be cool, stern, or macho to be brave. You just have to be brave. There are moments where Blades goes out of his way to risk his life to protect his family, like when he lures the pterosaur to be eaten by the giant fish, or when he straight up throws hands with discount flying Anguirus. That's when it hit me. If there was any point where G1 Blades appeared, it was when this Blades was brave enough to face the Decepticon threat head-on as a Protectobot. Even when the odds were stacked against her, and even when she was scared for her life. They're the same character at different points in time. As for Dani, she was super interesting to design. I wanted her to look bulkier because the outfits pilots were wearing were super thick, and the first thing we saw Dani do in the show was rock climbing, so I imagined her to at least have a lot of upper body strength. Her hairstyle was also super fun to figure out. Using real-life references and suggestions from my friend really brought this character to life. The harness was also really hard to find. I just kind of picked one. A lot of the equipment for a lot of these designs were heavily referenced, but to be fair, I wanted them to look standard issue, I guess. Experts can correct me in the comments section.
Boulder's more than his old mode. And if we stopped putting people in boxes, saw him for who he was, we would have been able to save more lives.
Never expected someone so technologically ahead of us to admire Earth as it is.
This is the design I'm the least proud of, which is a shame because Boulder's my favorite rescue bot. I had concepts that he'd have a dinosaur alt mode on his own because he was the first one to get one in the show. I even whipped up some sketches on how it could look like while still keeping the bulldozer scoop. It just felt like it made sense, but also, I don't know. I also felt like it'd be cool to show off how bulldozers are actually used in emergency situations. The skid steers that have water sprinklers are so cool, but unfortunately they were too small for him. Instead, I settled for this Cat D8R, specifically the one for the Los Angeles County Fire Department. It was modified to be resistant against fire so it can dig fire breaks. I wanted to be as faithful as possible, but honestly, I don't know if this was the best choice. The leg still being the bulldozer scoops honestly hurt the design because it just made the pistons on the cows really confusing. A lot of the design just feels really cartoony as a result. All in all, I'm not happy with how the joints feel mostly. He just looks a little flimsy and difficult to rationalize. I'm happy with the head design though. I was trying to find a way to make him distinct from Bulkhead and a lot of other big-jawed characters I plan on having for my AU. So my solution was to not put him in that category, but instead make his jaws just slightly bigger. I also gave him a beard-looking thing. I do like the hands, too. It's a good compromise with the show design, and I'm also very happy with the bright colors and the jovial expression he has in the render. They really fit the character. The support for this design really did surprise me when I posted this on my community tab, as I was worried people were going to be disappointed. Graham Burns was going to be more of a drastic redesign. While Dani was going to be redesigned more from a proportion standpoint, I felt more comfortable adding more stuff to Graham, giving him measuring tape, putting his tools on his pockets, and a straight up car mental rope? Is that what it's called? No idea what that would do, but it looked cool. I wanted him to look like a safety inspector who could fix things on the fly. Something subtle I try to do with the characters is to give personality through the eyes. Kade's eyes are wide open, he's confident yet also vigilant of danger, at least when he's not looking at food or thinking about Haley. Chief's are slanted a little bit. They're tilted and they kind of look sad. Well, he's not actually sad, but I guess it makes him look softer. Dani's are rounder, is confident like Kade, probably more aggressive, but when it comes down to it, she's kind and will treat you with care and respect. Graham... Okay, I'm just saying, doing your PhD while being a first responder cannot be good for your sleep schedule. So that leaves us with Kade, who was also fun to redesign. But there isn't really much to say about the human characters besides they look more detailed. I did add tears to his pants because of how many accidents he probably got into. That and I had the idea that the circles on his jacket are actually Velcros that don't have their patches yet. Shows that he hasn't picked his career yet, I guess. The backstory for the rescue bots is essentially 4 of them were put on space patrol as Sigma-17. They went back to Cybertron as soon as they heard about the war and joined the Protectobots, which specialized in evacuating civilians during the early parts of the war, and after the events of Return to Cybertron, many Autobots went to Earth and called the planet home. The Rescue Bots became Rescue Bots once more and helped Griffin Rock be a safer place to live in. My idea for Griffin Rock is that it's a town with people who are kind of just used to the constant danger and they tolerate it because it keeps the tourists away. But I also wanted to expand the idea that it's a technologically advanced town by placing a campus there. The Griffin Rock Institute of Technology, along with the future Rescue Bots Academy on the mainland. That's their backstory, but what about the story they star in? Well, you'll just have to wait and see.
Time.
Yeah, we were just talking about Heatwave.
What?
Rescue bots, woke to the rescue.
Okay.
This isn't fair, Heatwave. How come you get to have another set of pronouns? How come you get to have the blue hair?